They laughed at her clothes, mocked her job, and called her a failure. All at the dinner table she helped them book. But when the bill came, she stood up, smiled, and changed the meaning of success forever. The restaurant glittered with golden lights and soft jazz, but Ama Serwaa felt like a shadow among stars. Her blue dress was neatly ironed but old, her heels scuffed at the edges, the kind you wear because they still work, not because they impress. As she stepped through the glass doors, a hush fell over the table. Her former classmates, polished in designer clothes and dripping in perfume, looked up with smirks that cut sharper than knives. Zara Owusu, the self-proclaimed queen of their class, leaned back in her chair with a glass of wine and that same mocking smile Ama remembered from school. "Ama, you actually came?" she said loudly enough for the nearby tables to hear. "I thought you'd be too busy fixing broken phones." The laughter that followed was cruel, loud, empty, and rehearsed. Ama's throat tightened, but she refused to show pain. She smiled, the kind of smile that hides storms, and took her seat. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the napkin, pretending not to notice the stares or the whispers. The waiter poured her water like she was invisible. As they talked about luxury cars, vacations in Dubai, and business deals, Ama nodded politely. Every word reminded her of what she didn't have, but also what she'd earned alone. They didn't know how many nights she'd worked under a single bulb, repairing phones just to pay her mother's hospital bills. They didn't know that the small shop she ran had slowly grown, one customer, one repair at a time. When Zara leaned in again, smirking, "You really haven't changed, have you?" Ama just smiled softly. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was power building quietly, waiting for its moment. She didn't know that night that the same people laughing at her would one day stand in line, begging for her help, her partnership, her forgiveness. But for now she simply sat there calm, graceful, and unseen, as fate began to shift in her favor. In that glittering room filled with fake laughter, Ama Serwaa's story of humiliation had quietly begun, but what none of them knew was that it would end in her triumph years ago. Ama Serwaa walked the same university halls as the people now mocking her. At the University of Ghana, she had been one of the brightest, always on top of her class, full of dreams about building her own tech company someday. Professors admired her sharp mind, and her classmates used to come to her for help before exams. Back then, she believed success was only a matter of time. But time, as she learned, can be cruel. When her mother fell seriously ill, everything changed. The long nights of studying turned into sleepless nights at the hospital. Fees went unpaid and textbooks gathered dust while medical bills piled high. One day, Ama made the hardest decision of her life. She dropped out of university to take care of her mother. Her friends promised to stay in touch, but soon they stopped calling. They moved on, chasing promotions, while Ama stood beside her mother's bed, holding on to love instead of ambition. With nothing but determination and a few tools, she opened a tiny roadside repair shop in Accra. The first day no one came. The second, a man brought in a broken phone. Slowly, customers started to trickle in, but with them came whispers and judgment. "A woman fixing electronics?" People laughed. "You're wasting your life, Ama. You should find a husband instead." But Ama never stopped. She learned with her hands, burned her fingers on circuits, and taught herself every repair trick she could find online. Every broken phone she fixed was a small victory. Every satisfied customer a quiet answer to the people who doubted her. Still, deep inside, the pain of those words never fully left her. Now, years later, sitting at that restaurant table surrounded by her former classmates, Ama watched them flaunt designer watches, luxury handbags, and fancy business cards. Their laughter was louder than ever, but so was her silence. They saw her as the same poor girl who never made it, but she knew something they didn't. The same past that wounded her had also made her unbreakable. As they talked about their lives, Ama sat quietly, her eyes calm yet fierce, a storm waiting for its moment to rise. The dinner continued, filled with clinking glasses and soft music, but the air around Ama felt heavy. The waiter moved gracefully from one end of the table to the other, pouring drinks into crystal glasses. When he reached Ama, a hush fell. Zara Owusu, with her perfect makeup and expensive gold necklace, smirked as if waiting for her moment to strike. "So, Ama, Zara began, her voice sweet but sharp enough to cut. "Tell us, are you still repairing old radios by the roadside? Or have you upgraded to toasters now?" The table erupted in laughter. Even Kojo, once known for his kindness back in school, laughed nervously, trying not to meet Ama's eyes. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the restaurant like cruel music. Ama sat still, her fingers tightening around her glass. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. She had faced storms before. Hunger, loss, loneliness. This was nothing compared to that. Slowly she looked up, her voice soft but steady. "I'm still repairing," she said. "But some things are worth fixing, even when they're broken." Her words floated through the air, quiet yet powerful. For a brief second the laughter stopped. Zara blinked, unsure how to respond. But then someone snorted, and the table burst into laughter again, dismissing her words as if they meant nothing. Ama smiled faintly, hiding the sting in her chest. She sipped her drink, pretending not to notice their mockery. But inside her thoughts burned, not with anger but with resolve. They saw only her worn dress and her calloused hands. They didn't see the small team she trained at her shop, or the growing list of clients who trusted her more than any shiny tech company. As the others kept talking about business trips, luxury apartments, and their perfect lives, Ama listened silently, her eyes distant. Each cruel laugh was another reminder of how far she had come without them. In that moment she realized something. They had outgrown compassion, while she had grown strength. They were laughing now, yes, but soon life would show them what true success looked like. Not in titles or wealth, but in grace under fire. As the laughter echoed around the restaurant, Ama sat there quietly, her lips curving into a calm smile. What none of them knew, not Zara, not Kojo, not any of those who mocked her, was that Ama's small dusty roadside repair shop had grown into something extraordinary. Her hands, once covered in grease from fixing old radios and phones, now signed contracts with schools, hospitals, and government offices. Her little corner shop had become Serwaa Tech Care, one of Ghana's fastest-growing repair franchises. What began with a single workbench and borrowed tools had blossomed into a company with 32 employees, young men and women she personally trained, giving them the chances she never had. While her classmates were busy posting pictures of vacations and luxury dinners, Ama was quietly expanding her business, one repaired device at a time. She didn't chase attention. She built legacy. She didn't post her achievements online because she believed success didn't need to scream. It could whisper and still be heard by the right people. Her name was now known in the tech community, respected, even admired. Schools trusted her company with their computer labs. Hospitals relied on her team for maintenance of vital medical equipment. But to those sitting across from her tonight, she was still the girl fixing radios. Outside the restaurant, parked under the glow of the streetlight, was her sleek black car, polished, elegant, and almost unnoticeable to anyone not paying attention. It had tinted windows, not to hide luxury, but to protect her privacy. Inside that car lay documents from a recent deal worth millions of cedis, waiting to be signed the next morning. Ama didn't need to prove herself to anyone at that table. She had already proven herself to life. As Zara bragged about her new handbag and another friend boasted about a promotion, Ama's mind wandered to her employees, young apprentices who now earned enough to care for their families because she believed in them. Every word they spoke, every laugh they shared at her expense, only reminded her how much she had outgrown them. They lived for validation. She lived for purpose. And while they saw only a modest woman in an old blue dress, the truth was, she was the quiet storm that had already changed her world. The laughter had gone on long enough, but Zara wasn't done showing off. She lifted her wine glass, the golden liquid catching the light as she smirked across the table. Her voice dripped with arrogance as she said, "You know, success is not for everyone. Some of us are born for it." The others laughed and nodded, as if her words were gospel. The sound was sharp, cruel, and it pierced the quiet dignity Ama carried. Ama didn't flinch. She just looked at Zara with calm eyes and a faint, almost kind smile. "You're right," she said softly. "Some of us had to build it from the ground." Her tone was gentle, but the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. For the first time that night, the laughter faded. Forks paused midair. Even the music from the restaurant seemed to soften. No one quite knew how to respond. The silence didn't last long. The waiter appeared with the bill, a neat leather folder placed in the center of the table. All eyes turned naturally to Zara. She was the one who had organized this reunion after all. She adjusted her earrings and gave a nervous little laugh. "Oh, I think I left my wallet in the car," she said, pretending to check her bag. Kojo coughed, pretending to be busy with his phone. Another woman murmured something about not having enough cash. One by one, excuses began to fill the air like smoke. The same people who spent the evening bragging about salaries, luxury vacations, and designer clothes suddenly couldn't pay for dinner. Ama sat quietly watching them scramble. There was no anger in her expression, only a deep, knowing sadness. These were people who once thought they were above her, yet here they were, exposed by something as simple as a restaurant bill. Her fingers brushed over the edge of her small purse. She didn't rush to speak, didn't try to embarrass them. Instead, she just observed, the same way she always had when life tested her patience. Her silence was powerful, her composure almost unsettling. In that moment, something shifted. The table full of loud voices grew quiet again, sensing that the balance of power was about to change. And Ama, the woman they had all dismissed, sat there with a calmness they couldn't understand, as if she already knew how the night would end. The air around the table had grown thick with tension. Everyone sat frozen, glancing nervously at one another as the unpaid bill lay untouched between them. Zara's fake laughter had disappeared. Kojo's phone was still in his hand, but his fingers no longer moved. The once proud group of former classmates now looked small, uneasy, and embarrassed. Ama took a slow breath. Her movements were steady, unhurried, almost graceful. She reached into her small black purse, the same one they had mocked earlier, and pulled out a sleek platinum card. The silver edges shimmered under the restaurant lights. "Don't worry," she said softly, her tone calm but commanding. "I'll take care of it." The waiter, surprised, stepped closer and took the card with both hands. His eyes widened when he saw the name engraved in gold letters. Ama Serwaa, founder and CEO, Serwaa Tech Care Limited. The title gleamed like a hidden crown finally revealed. The table went completely silent. You could almost hear hearts beating. Zara blinked hard, her smile fading into disbelief. "Ama," she stammered, her voice cracking slightly. "You're the owner of Serwaa Tech Care? The same company that just signed with Vodafone." Ama looked up, her eyes steady, her expression kind yet unshakable. "Yes," she replied simply. "The same one you said would never survive." A stunned silence swept through the table. The laughter that once echoed in that room had turned into shameful quiet. Kojo leaned back, his mouth slightly open as if he had seen a ghost. One of the women dropped her fork, the clatter breaking the stillness for only a second. The waiter returned with the receipt, smiling respectfully. "Thank you, Madame Serwaa," he said, his tone filled with admiration. Even he understood what had just happened. The woman they mocked was the most powerful person in the room. Ama took the receipt, signed it gracefully, and placed the pen down. There was no arrogance in her eyes, no revenge in her smile. Just peace. The peace of someone who had already fought her battles and won them quietly. The people who once pitted her now stared as if they were seeing her for the first time. Ama rose from her chair, her dignity radiating like quiet fire. She didn't need to explain anything. Her success spoke louder than any insult they had ever thrown at her. For a long moment, no one said a word. It felt as if the air itself had frozen. Even the soft jazz playing in the background faded, as though the entire restaurant was holding its breath. The same people who laughed the loudest now sat small and silent, staring at the woman they once mocked. Ama didn't gloat, didn't smirk. She simply looked calm, powerful in her quiet. The waiter returned with the bill, placing it gently in front of her. It was a large amount, several hundred sadis, but Ama didn't even blink. She picked up the pen, signed her name with slow confidence, and slid the folder back toward the waiter. "Thank you," she said kindly. Her voice carried a strange authority, the kind that doesn't need to be loud to be heard. She looked around the table once more. Every eye avoided hers, Zara's, Kojo's, all of them. Their earlier pride had melted into regret. Then Ama spoke, her tone soft but steady, cutting through the silence like truth itself. Next time, she said, try not to measure people by what they wear, but by what they build. The words hung in the air like a lesson no one could forget. Some of them shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others lowered their heads. They knew she was right, and that realization burned more deeply than any insult. Ama rose slowly from her chair, picked up her purse, and nodded politely to the waiter. Thank you for your service, she said before turning toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed against the polished floor, each one sounding like freedom. Zara's lips trembled. Ama, wait, she whispered, her voice breaking with shame. I didn't mean. Ama paused and turned just slightly, her calm smile soft but unshakable. You did, she replied gently. And that's okay. You helped me remember who I am. Then she walked out, not rushing, not looking back. Heads turned as she passed through the restaurant, her grace impossible to ignore. Outside, the night lights reflected off the tinted car waiting for her. She opened the door, took one last deep breath, and smiled. Inside the restaurant, silence lingered. Heavy, haunting, unforgettable. No one laughed anymore. They had just witnessed what true success looked like. Quiet, graceful, and unstoppable. As Ama's footsteps faded into the night, the silence she left behind was heavier than any insult they had thrown at her. For a few long seconds no one moved. The waiter stood awkwardly at a distance, unsure whether to clear the table or let them drown in their own quiet. The laughter that had filled the room earlier now felt like a ghost, gone, leaving only embarrassment in its place. Kojo was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper. We all laughed at the wrong person, he said, staring down at the empty glass in his hand. No one disagreed. The words sank into each of them like cold rain. Zara sat still, her perfect posture gone, her hands shaking slightly. The same confidence she wore like armor had completely vanished. Her makeup couldn't hide the guilt building behind her eyes. She was the only one who never gave up, murmured one of the women quietly, almost to herself. The others nodded faintly, each one realizing how blind pride had made them. On the table, the once beautiful desserts sat untouched. The chocolate mousse had melted into a puddle, the fruit garnish now wilted. They had ordered so much, boasted so loudly. Yet now everything looked spoiled, tasteless. Their pride had melted the same way, sweet at first but now bitter in the aftertaste. Zara's eyes wandered to the door where Ama had walked out. Just minutes ago, she thought of herself as the star of the night, the one everyone admired. But now she could only picture Ama's calm smile, her quiet confidence, her grace even after being mocked. It haunted her. Kojo leaned back, letting out a sigh that sounded more like defeat. You know what's crazy, he said. She didn't need to prove anything. We were too blind to see who she already was. The others said nothing. The clinking of cutlery and quiet chatter from other tables filled the background, reminding them that life was moving on, but they were frozen in their shame. The camera would linger here, on the half-eaten food, the untouched desserts, the empty chairs, the remains of arrogance and pride. Because sometimes the loudest sound in the room isn't laughter or applause. It's regret, heavy, quiet, and deserved. Ama drove through the quiet streets of Accra, the city lights reflecting softly on her windshield. The night air was still, and the sound of her car engine hummed like a gentle reminder of peace. Her hands rested calmly on the steering wheel, but her heart was full, not with pride but with quiet gratitude. The dinner had ended painfully, yet beautifully. For the first time in years she didn't feel small. She felt free. As she stopped at a red light, her phone buzzed on the seat beside her. She glanced down and saw a message from a school principal she had met months ago. Her thumb trembled slightly as she opened it. Thank you, Madam Serwaa. The computers you donated saved our program. Because of you, our students can continue their digital training. God bless you. Ama's lips parted slowly into a smile, her eyes filling with tears that glistened in the glow of the streetlight. She rested her head back against the seat, whispering softly to herself, "Success isn't about who claps for you. It's about who you lift. For a long moment, she just sat there, letting the words sink into her soul. All those years people called her names: failure, poor girl, dreamer. But now those same words had turned into her strength. She had built something real, not from pride, not to impress, but to help. As she continued driving, her mind drifted to her mother, the woman who had believed in her when no one else did. She could almost hear her mother's gentle voice saying, "Ama, kindness will always outlast cruelty." That thought made her smile again. At a stop near a small junction, she noticed a group of young boys trying to fix a broken radio under a flickering streetlight. It reminded her of herself years ago, hands covered in grease, heart full of hope. She rolled down her window and called out, "Do you need tools? I can help." The boys looked up, surprised, their faces lighting up with admiration. Ama knew right then this was her victory. Not the money, not the recognition, but the chance to inspire someone else to keep going. The city seemed to shine a little brighter as she drove away, her tears now replaced with peace. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't proving others wrong. It's proving to yourself that you were always are. A year later, the air in Accra buzzed with excitement as women from all walks of life gathered for the National Women's Empowerment Conference. The hall glowed with soft golden lights, and banners of hope and strength hung across the walls. At the center of it all stood Ama Serwaa, no longer the quiet, nervous girl who once sat at a table full of mockery, but a woman who had turned pain into purpose. She walked toward the stage in a white suit that shimmered under the lights, her posture tall, her smile calm. The applause grew louder as her name was announced, founder and CEO of Serwaa Techcare, a woman redefining resilience. Ama paused for a second, scanning the faces in the audience. That's when she saw her, Zara Owusu, sitting in the volunteer section, handing out leaflets with a modest smile. Her once proud rival now looked different, softer, humbled, changed. Ama felt no bitterness, only peace. She nodded slightly in Zara's direction before stepping to the microphone. The hall fell silent. Her voice was calm but carried weight, the kind that comes from living through storms. "They called me a failure once," she began, her tone steady. "Now I pay salaries, but the biggest payment is forgiveness." A murmur rippled through the crowd, not of pity but admiration. Ama continued, her eyes glistening as she spoke from her heart. "I learned that success is not loud. It doesn't need applause or attention. It just grows quietly, while others are busy doubting you." She smiled warmly, letting her words sink into the silence. Then she added softly, "And when you finally rise, rise with grace, not revenge." The room erupted into applause. Women stood to their feet, clapping and cheering, some with tears in their eyes. Even Zara clapped, her head bowed slightly, her expression one of respect and regret. As Ama stepped down from the stage, flashes from cameras surrounded her, but her heart stayed humble. The narrator's voice rose softly over the scene. They laughed at her for being small, until they realized her heart was the biggest thing in the room. Ama walked out of the hall, sunlight streaming through the glass doors, her legacy sealed, not in wealth or fame but in grace.